me. You can't beat the memories you gave me.
There were two though. Johnny's where it is today. That was his father though that had it. And down the other end of the other corner, where the circle is, just before the circle, there was Frank Toomer had a tackle shop, and he had a partner, Lou Shalar, who generally was behind the counter. And Toomer and Shalar came to Montauk in the teens, I believe, or early 20s. I think it was in the teens. They were in the Coast Guard, and they worked out of the Ditch Plains Coast Guard station, which is no longer there. And so I used to go in there once in a while and talk with Lou Shalar, and he was reportedly one of the best fishermen out there in the 20s and 30s, and even into the 40s. And he was very interesting to talk to and talk about the way they fished in those days. And so that was it. There were just two stores. Paulie's was in the distant future, but Johnny's was where most of the regulars went. And Johnny was had a great personality, was an interesting guy. If you listened to what he had to say, you learned more about how to fish Montauk. And so that was, I spent a lot of time in Johnny's. Once I got to know him, and he got to know me, and he was just a great guy. He was always working, but while if you went downstairs where he wound the rods, and he was varnishing, or if he was upstairs sharpening some gaffs for the boat fishermen, the charter boats, he was always talking. You could always engage conversation with him. Bob's fish was caught on November 15th under the light, and Johnny was going to Florida that day because Johnny had a place down in Key West, and when he went, he'd shut the shop down. Bob caught the fish, before daylight, and another club member, Al Reese, was with us. We put the fish in. I had just gotten my Volkswagen bus, and we put the fish in my Volkswagen, and went down to Johnny's, hoping that he'd be there. And that was, I don't know, 7:30 in the morning. And we pull up, and there's Johnny standing at the front door smoking a cigarette. And so Al Reese had taken a fish about 25 pounds. So he asked John if he'd weigh the fish. And we had put the fish out on the lawn. And Johnny says, nah, he says, I got the scale up on the rafters in the back, and he says, I'm not going to take it down for that rat. So then we brought out the Bob's fish. And Johnny went in and got the scale. And it was a very old scale, but it's a balanced scale, beautiful scale. And he had to test it every year. And he weighed Bob's fish. And then a couple hours later, Johnny went to Florida. It was Bob's fish was 58.13, and it probably would have been much better, because when he took it to the taxidermist, well, we could see, but when he took it to the taxidermist, there was practically nothing in the fish, nothing in the stomach. So that fish could have been 60. It was a beautiful fish. He spent a lot of time down that cellar winding and varnishing, and once you got to know him, then you had the privilege of going downstairs and talking to him when he was down there. Johnny, I liked Johnny Cornick, and once you got to know him, when I first started going out there, I would stop in and see if he had any hints. And I found out that when the fishing was really bad, if he didn't know you real well, he'd spot guys, hoping that one of the guys was going to hit some fish someplace. And I know the one time I went in there, he told me to go down and try Gin Beach. And I did, but there was nothing there. But then once you got to know Johnny, he would tell you. I would call him up on the phone, and I'd say, what's doing out there? And he'd say, stay home. And Johnny, once you were a regular out there, Johnny didn't give you any bum information, and he was honest with you, and he'd fill you in completely.